Hello again, and welcome to this episode of the Guns Magazine podcast. I'm your host and the editor of Guns Magazine, Brent Wheat. Thanks for joining us here on one of the world's biggest gun talk programs as we talk to the interesting folks who make up the world of shooting. Well, one of those well-known interesting folks is my unofficial co-host, Roy Huntington. I had an idea, called him up, and we talked about it. That would be, what happens when you're, say, cleaning out Grandpa's gun locker after he passes, or maybe a buddy's, or maybe you buy a storage unit, and you find things that shouldn't be there. We're talking fully automatic weapons, military ordnance, fireworks, things like that. There's some concerns and some obvious legal problems that you need to be aware of if you run into that. So we talk about a few things that you can do and some stuff you need to be aware of from the safety angle when you run across things. Before we do that, a couple of quick housekeeping notes. Please, as always, like and subscribe. That makes you part of the Guns Magazine family, and it helps justify what we do. And before I get started with Roy, here's a quick word from our great sponsor, Riton Optics. Appreciate you supporting them because they allow us to keep doing this.
This is where we go to feel alive. This is primal. This is where we go to train. This is tactics. This is where we take it all the way. This is conquer. This is who we are. This is what we do. This is Right On.
Well, good morning, Roy.
Oh yeah, what's good about it? I mean, good morning.
Yeah, we got coffee, and anyway, I thought today would be an interesting topic, and it was funny because when I proposed it yesterday, Roy and I kind of went back and forth because it can be fraught with a little bit of I'm not even exactly sure of the word to use, but we're going to talk about what happens when you find stuff that you shouldn't find. And this is a legal example, but if you're going through Granddad's gun cabinet and find something like that, and for our audio listeners, it's an 18 military smoke grenade, which I acquired through legal channels, but I got a couple of those, and they just look like military ordnance. But both of us are retired police officers, and we both had the experience where folks have called and said, here, can you take care of this, or this is my granddad's gun, or alternately, a friend's wife who's passed away call, hey, can you come here and look at his guns? And occasionally you'll run into those things. You're going, oh, this presents a problem. So we're going to talk about that today, and we're going to focus on two things: the legal aspects, which we have to be careful about, and the safety aspects, which can be considerable. And I was just telling Roy about an instance years ago at our police station that's back when we still had dispatchers that took the desk, and a little old lady brought a cardboard box. It was kind of wet looking. It was dynamite, like 4 sticks. And can you dispose of this? It's like, let's all be very quiet and walk out of here very quietly. And yeah, they had to call the bomb squad, and because our agency wasn't big enough to have one. And these guys were like, ooh, that's bad juju. So you never know what you're going to find. So I know, Roy, you've had a lot of similar experiences, especially in San Diego, which is a military town.
And that's exactly right, since it's a military town. You know, it is amazing the ordnance that people drag in. You know, I used to work in an area called Tierra Santa in San Diego, and there used to be like a World War II era ordnance range in that area. And so, I mean, I don't think a week went by without a radio call saying, hey, would you contact the citizen? Their kids found something.
Oh, geez.
You know, and you would either go out in the field and find it. And a lot of times it would be like an expended, you know, inert 20 millimeter round or something, you know, or like there's a 30-06 in the dirt all corroded, you know, but every once in a while there'd be the nose of something sticking out of the dirt, you know. Yeah.
Well, so one of the first things one of the stories I thought of when we were coming up with this topic was, I've got a friend, and I'm going to be intentionally vague, and you'll understand why. I had a friend who's well known who was helping out another friend who had passed. And this person's significant other said, can you clean out his storage unit? And his storage unit was chock full of memorabilia and just all kinds of cool stuff. No guns, but all kinds of ammo and, just anything and everything. And he reached down into an ammo crate and felt something. And he suddenly realized, I think that's a Claymore mine. And the person we're referring to as past is one of those people that it wouldn't surprise you if they had rigged a booby trap in there just so you'd make sure you found out whoever tried to burglarize your storage unit. So he immediately called me afterwards and was real shook up. I mean, I don't blame him. He said, I didn't know what to do. I felt it, I felt a little bit more, and then I just froze. And I'm in this storage unit by myself. Nobody really knew where he was. And he's thinking, what do I do? I mean, I'm even afraid if I move. And so, that's the kind of thing we're talking about. And it does happen. So
they would have known where he was.
Exactly. Well, as it turned out, it was a training aid, which you've probably seen those. It says inert on some point. So let's dive into the safety aspect of all this. People do collect not inert, they collect live ammunition, live shells, live explosives. World War II grenades still pop up occasionally. Claymores. People even will sometimes latch on to mortar rounds. Basically anything you can stick in your pocket and secret off a base. So let's talk about that. Like you said, your area had a bomb squad. We didn't. We had to call the state. But if somebody is cleaning out Grandpa's storage locker or his gun cabinet and finds something that looks like military, talk about your experience and what some of that stuff kind of looks like and when you should say, I think we need to leave now.
Well, I think you need to say, I think we need to leave now anytime that little voice inside says, I'm not sure about this.
Yeah.
Unless it's Barbie pink and got feathers on it. You know what I mean? If you think it's a hand grenade or an inert something if it's clearly a cartridge, like a, bandolier of 30-06 from World War II. Okay, that's fine. And pick that up, whatever. You're not going to blow yourself up. But if it's anything bigger than that, I would say even including up to 50 caliber rounds, because some of them can be, tracers and, you never know.
Yeah.
If you have like that thing you held up a minute ago, anything that looks remotely like a hand grenade or a smoke grenade or a handheld rocket or any of that kind of stuff, just don't be a hero.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because there's so many of those. Hey, hold my beer while I pick this up.
Yeah.
We'll move it outside really carefully. Boom.
Yeah. Well, that's what's amazing about that. The little lady with the box of dynamite, she put that in her car, drove through town, came up the police station, set it on the counter. And if you know anything about old dynamite that is oozing, leaking, sweating, they call it, nitroglycerin, it literally can be impact sensitive. And we're not talking with a hammer. We're talking like that. And, think about she risked herself. She risked all the people on the road because that would be a car bomb waiting to happen. And then she brought it into the police station, but she didn't know any better and she didn't know what to do with it.
What's that old saying about God protects children and the stupid or something,
Exactly.
But yeah, I'm sure it wasn't malicious, but
no.
In in the middle 70s, 74, 75, 76, I was a reserve on the Chula Vista Police Department. And part of our duties we would man the front counter. And so basically you were sort of station security, you were the first line of defense. And then also you would deal with all the walk-ins. And a lot of it is like, hey, can you take this theft report? My neighbor's kid stole my hose, and it was real routine kind of stuff. But pretty often it would be the little old lady come in and clunk with a bag on the counter and says, my husband died. I'd like to turn this gun in. And, usually you look in and it's an old Smith & Wesson breaktop 38 or, every once in a while it'd be a World War II era 1911 or, you just never know what was going to walk in the door. A side note, in those nice, better old days, we were actually allowed to buy those guns from the people if we wanted to. So if it wasn't anything that was unsafe or illegal, rather than just have it destroyed, you could just say, hey, I'll give you $50 for it, which was great because we got some money into these old ladies' pockets and it worked out. So, well, one day one came in and said, young man, could you please come and get my husband's gun from the car because he's passed away and I don't want it in the house any longer. And it's like, sure, that was pretty routine. You'd go out and there'd be a bolt-action 30-06 hunting rifle or something. Well, this time I reach in the trunk and pull out a M2 carbine, which was, of course, the full auto, carbine. Oh, yeah. It had magazines on the buttstock and that little double mag pouch that they used to have. And she had a really stinky, greasy old canvas military bag in there. And there was, maybe a half a dozen more loaded magazines. And this was all World War II era, magazines and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, darn. But that brings up a point that I know you wanted to talk about, and I agree with you completely. It's like there's a huge part of you that goes, oh my gosh, why can't I have this? Yeah. Because I know for a fact, if I had said, well, but I'll give you $100 for this, she would have said, oh, okay.
Sure.
Right? But unfortunately, the federal government has decided that there is no way that you can register guns like that, as far as I'm aware of.
Right.
I don't care if it's a family heirloom. I don't care if never been involved in a crime. There's no way that gun can become legal. The only thing it can be is part of a police department crime lab reference collection. Mm-hmm. I know on our San Diego Police Department, we had full auto Uzis, and we had a Barrett, we had full auto Galil, we had all that, an M2 carbine. We used to take them out and do research and shoot them sometimes. And so
research.
Yeah. After raiding the property room and stealing all their disposed, ammunition, they would just have these big boxes of ammunition they were just going to throw in the ocean. So we would take that and shoot. But anyway, so that's a real tragedy. But I guess my point is, as tempting as it is, you have to remember it's a federal felony. And they don't smile about it.
No, that's
it's not a joke. It's not like, okay, I can see where you made a mistake and thought you could keep that BAR.
Yeah. That was the first, when we were kind of throwing scenarios back and forth, getting ready for the show, that was the first thing you brought up. And I wasn't thinking of that, but I thought, imagine if somebody had a pristine 1928 Thompson that, granddad had used, on the Texas Rangers or whatever and got to keep. Almost priceless type of gun. But again, even being in mere possession of it makes you a felon. And as Roy pointed out, that's not one of those things that go, oh, okay, now next time don't do it, but you're okay this time. No, that's, And
there was a famous businessman in San Diego, and he was very supportive of the police. He was, always donating equipment and, help build a new canine facility or, stuff like that. Big bucks guy. Well, apparently, I never saw it myself, but I know it's a fact. He had a 1928 Thompson that somehow he got it, like after the war, because he actually flew an airplane in the war. And apparently, in the 50s and 60s, he used to bring it down to the police range, and they would all shoot it. Everybody would, this is really fun. Hey, thanks. All right, take care. And then he'd load it back in the car and take it home. So I know the kinder, gentler, more simple days, I suppose, but when I used to get calls every once in a while, you probably did too, of either meet the lady or meet the person. And so you go there. And it's somebody, and they've got, grandpa's .38 revolver or something like that. And so that's pretty innocuous, according to whatever your agency rules are. Early in my career, it was not inappropriate if you would say, well, you know what, I'd really like to buy this from you and come back off duty,
Yeah.
make the transaction. It was all perfectly legal. After that, you were never allowed to do that. But sometimes you'd get those calls, and like we were talking about before, and it really would be a really bad explosive.
Yeah.
And it would be in somebody's house.
Yeah. In the bottom of the closet, usually.
Yeah. And there were some times when, you would respond, because like you say, it was a real military town.
Yeah.
We had a Marine Corps training facility there. We had, it was Camp Pendleton was there. It had the Navy Training Center. I mean, it was just like everywhere. And you would get a call. And I remember one time I drove into somebody's driveway, and this guy comes out with a military duffel bag, and he goes, plop, and plops it at my feet. And he said, yeah, I'd like to turn this in. I found it, when my dad died, and I thought, oh, okay. And I look inside, and it's got like the M60 grenade launcher. It's got those cartridges in it.
Yeah.
And he had just plopped it down on the concrete driveway at my feet.
Yeah.
And it was like, remember the old tooty police whistles? It's like I wanted to grab the whistle and blow my whistle and everybody get back, which is what we did, though. I mean, we cleared the area, cleared half a dozen houses, fire department came out. You remember the bomb disposal truck that they had, like that concrete and steel? Maybe you didn't have one. It was just like, I don't know, cistern-looking thing on the back of a trailer.
Yep.
And they would come up, and a guy in a bomb suit, which I found out later on really didn't matter. You were like still gonna die.
It was so they'd have an open casket funeral.
Yeah, unless it was like an M80.
Yeah,
right? It was an M80. That protects you.
Yeah.
So anyway, they would put that in the bomb thing and toddle off. And I remember vividly that time I was pointing my finger at this guy and going, you know what? That was like one of the more stupid things I've ever seen. They were obviously some military ordinance. You come out and throw it down on the concrete. And they just, but people, they go, oh,
oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, I never thought of that before. So,
well, military ordnance generally is, for practice purposes, is generally marked. It'll be blue, or in the case of the Claymore, it'll say inert training aid or whatever it says on that. But you cannot absolutely positively be sure of that, because some of that stuff does have a charge in it. Like a military artillery simulator, it'll blow your arm clean off, but it's a basically a flashbang kind of thing. The other is sometimes people take those and make them into something. I know that there's countless inert grenades. I've got several here that generally they'll be drilled out in the bottom so you can't pack stuff in them. Well, there's folks that fix that, and you can make it live, so to speak. And the thing is, when people do that with improvised devices, they are so much more dangerous than military, because military, if it's in normal shape, even if it's old, it should withstand reasonable handling, right? You wouldn't hit it with a hammer, but it'll probably be okay. But what Billy Bob, bought some inert whatever's down at the surplus store and then did a little work to enhance them, those things are so unstable and so dangerous that if you run across things like that, unless you absolutely know for certain, like the pineapple grenade I've got has clearly got an inch hole in the bottom, and there's virtually no way you could make that thing live. So hopefully nobody would lose their mind over it. But if you don't know, let it go and just stand back. I think that's actually a phrase. If you don't know, let it go.
Absolutely. I have some personal experience with that. When my brother passed away years and years and years ago, we were at his apartment complex, and he had a step van that was parked in the parking lot. And so we got it open, and there was like a semi-hoarder kind of a situation inside. And so we're digging through it and found a couple guns he had and, some other things like that. And all of a sudden there was a hand grenade. And my brother was just enough of a nut job that it wouldn't have surprised me.
Yeah.
And this was like a Vietnam era, one of the round ones, looked like a baseball,
right?
Green. And I'm looking at it, and like you say, I don't see anything that says inert. Mm-hmm. And it's got what looks like the what do they call the firing device? Had a spoon on it. There's no holes in the bottom. It's got very official looking white and yellow lettering and numbers on it and stuff. And I just said, okay, everybody back up, you know. And so I called the police department. The cop came. Of course, cop doesn't know anything. He's like me. Well, I don't know. That could be a hand grenade. It's like, yeah, right. Okay, Einstein.
Or it could be an espresso machine. I don't know.
Or it's an espresso machine. I don't know. You know, it's not Barbie pink with feathers. So, yeah it's probably a hand grenade. So he calls the fire department. And fortunately, you know, a lot of times the fire department guys, they're all trained, you know, to recognize that stuff. And so they called the EOD guys, came out, and when he first looked at it, he said, you know what, that's a pretty good one. He told me that he was 99% sure that it was inert, but he said, you know, it's pretty good, so let's just be careful, you know.
Yeah.
And so they carted it off, and I found out later that it was inert, but better. He said it was the best one he'd ever seen.
Better safe than sorry, because you know that's the thing when you talk to anybody that's been a victim of their own stupidity, they really wish they hadn't have done that, but they figured it was going to be okay at the time. The infamous "Here, hold my beer," you know.
I know, but I'll tell you when I you know moved whatever it was I moved in, there was the hand grenade. I will always remember that feeling. You know. Yeah. I mean, it was just that, like, life flashing by you kind of a thing.
Yep.
And I know, like you say, if it's real, it's probably fairly stable, you know. But here we are, it's, you know, 50 years after the war. Who knows where this thing's been? Who knows? You know, it's been in this hot van for who knows how long. And, I mean, it was just like my heart went from normal operating beatage to 150. I just remember, like, whew. You know, and then, okay, back, everybody get back, you know, and I didn't even want to close the door then because I was afraid of,
just back out very quietly.
Away. Walk away. Oh, wait, but as Monty Python used to say, run away, keep running.
Exactly. You know? Well, let's talk a little bit about disposal. And this applies whether you're talking ordnance or you find that M2 fully auto that, you know, you can't have it. You just can't. I'm going to get into the do as I say, not as I do. And Roy, you're in the exact same category as I am. But, you know, a lot of times we throw that stuff in the river or the lake or the ocean. Yep. And the problem is nowadays, first of all, there can be some contamination, especially if you're dumping a whole box of ammo, you know, in a pond. That's not environmentally very safe. But the thing is nowadays with the technology of there's people out there magnet fishing. There are underwater drones, consumer level, because I've been looking at some, and there's even YouTube channels where guys go out and find stuff. And there's a guy that I won't name him, but he's famous for he dives around, I believe, Columbus, Georgia, and I've watched a couple episodes where he finds claymores, inert claymores. He found a bunch of 60 millimeter mortar rounds. Somebody had undoubtedly stolen from inventory, and then realized, I don't need these. I need to get rid of them. So they chuck them in the river, and then people find them. So I understand the thought of dumping it, because you think once it's in the pond or the river, nobody's ever going to find it. And if you're 12 miles offshore, I can also see, you know, probably not going to be a problem there. But for the majority of us, I really caution you, think twice about before chucking stuff in the water, because it's not as it won't disappear like it used to. And if they suddenly, you know, find something, and the other thing I would caution you on is there's cameras every place now. So if you dump something behind a strip mall where there's a pond, don't be surprised if it's found, and they might even come back and say, your car was seen here standing next to the pond when something went in, and this is a Class 3 weapon that's a federal felony. It's just the way we used to do it is not the right way anymore. So speaking as somebody that's chucked an awful lot of ordnance into the ocean, Roy, your thoughts?
Well, you know, I was on the harbor unit, and so, you know, I mean, we would actually do that sometimes now that it's been enough years. But, you buzz out 2-3 miles offshore, chuck whatever over that you needed to get, you know, do. stuff that we were too lazy to impound or something, like that. It happens. It was the old days. That's how you did stuff, right?
Yep.
But I think a good question is, because I still field this, you do too, from readers. Hey, I've got a half a box of 38 Smith & Wesson ammo. My husband died. I don't need it. What do I do with it? And really, I mean, the best and safest thing is you do two things. Number one, find a friend of yours who's a shooter, and just say, hey, I've got this box of ammunition. Can you help me? I'm not sure what to do with it. Chances are good they'll take it. They'll add it to their collection, or they may have a gun that shoots it, or, they've got a friend of a friend who has one or something. And that's a good way to do that,
Yep.
You do have to remember, you don't want to throw it in the trash can, because the trash can, first of all, it's probably against the law. Mm-hmm. In there's probably city ordinances. Do not dispose of munitions in, and plus you have those big hydraulic trucks, and they've got the crusher things, and you just never know what's going to happen. And like you say, don't throw it in the local pond. So really the best thing to do is just call the police and say, hey, I've got this ammunition. I'd like to turn it in. And I promise you, unless they are idiots and jerks, they will dispatch some bored cop, and he'll come in and he'll take the bag from you and say, thank you very much, and then impound it. And then they have ways that they dispose of it. Sometimes they sell it wholesale to gun stores. A gun store will buy, hey, all these police trade-in guns and ammunition, and then they'll go through and maybe mine components, or if there's still good ammunition, they'll sell that. Or else they dump it at sea. In San Diego, they used to send a barge out from the San Diego Bay once a year or so, and it was accompanied by police officers, and they would go offshore. There was a trench there that was 2,000 feet deep, and then everything was inventoried, and it all went over the side.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Yep. And the whole thing of taking it to the police station, I realized, we'd always hear this. Every cop in the world, well, you were busy. I didn't want to bother you. Well, yes, we are, but we're just driving around drinking coffee and eating donuts. Okay, I'll say it, because I used to tell people that a lot. But if you're transporting something that's illegal and you get in a traffic accident, or you just get stopped and the cop gets interested or nosy, that's a whole different deal. Calling law enforcement saying, Grandpa's M2's in the closet and I know it's illegal and I don't want it, versus, that on the back seat, I was bringing it to you. You see, it's a whole different deal there. So just call law enforcement.
That's a very good point. I mean, if it's a box of ammo, that's fine. But you also have to remember, cops are a little sensitive today, when it comes to things. And so if you walk in the front door of the police station holding a rifle, I mean, you're kind of dancing with fire right there.
Exactly.
So, I mean, if you're determined to do something like that, then leave it in your car, come in and say, hey, I have my grandfather's gun. It's in the trunk of my car. Would you please come out with me and I will give it to you, Yep. But I'm with you, Brent. Just call and they will come by your house and you pay their salaries, remember.
Exactly.
And so let them do their job. But can we expand this just a little bit? Fireworks. Sure. Yeah. Fireworks.
Oh, good point. Yeah, because you see those a lot.
I mean, when I was young in San Diego, you were allowed to have fireworks, and then you weren't. But, of course, we were a stone's throw from Mexico, which meant we all had fireworks.
Everything goes.
Yeah. And some of these things were just, I mean, they were not fireworks. They were low-yield explosives. I mean, they had the one called a quarter stick, and it was essentially a quarter stick of dynamite. And from what I saw, it was. Yeah. I mean, it'd lift a rock right up out of the dirt. Yep. I mean, it was quite significant. And so, as cops there, we would, you either confiscate them, right? And I can't tell you the number of times I would put, 3 shopping bags of fireworks in the trunk of my police car to take them down. And then I learned right away that, don't do that. You don't take them to the property room because they get all excited about it. They can't store it.
Yeah.
Right? And so the fire department would take custody of the stuff, and then they would have this huge burn-a-thon every once in a while.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, dig a trench and throw everything in it, and whoever knew what he was doing would light it all off, and it was like, pew, pew, pew.
Wow.
So, but the old fireworks are terribly unstable.
Yeah.
And if you're in the Free America part here, there's the left coast and the right coast and America in between, and most of those states allow you to have fireworks.
Right.
And remember where they all come from, ladies and gentlemen. China, usually. And so quality control is iffy at best. And but as they age, they do get unstable. I uncovered some sparklers just not too long ago here. When we first moved here, we were excited to say, hey, you can have fireworks here, so not being an idiot, I went and I bought some sparklers, some little tiny, firecrackers, and we did a few, and then I forgot these make a big mess. And then so we did some sparklers and wrote our name in the air with them and did all the things you do with sparklers. I put them away, and so I uncovered them a little while ago. We've had them probably 15 years, and you know what? I opened up the box and it was basically powder with the metal rods. In them. They just completely deteriorated, and then I thought at the time, I don't know how unstable this is. This is scary.
Exactly.
So I just put it in a bucket and I put a whole lot of water on it, and then it was all right, So fireworks, same thing as bombs.
Well, it's fun. I didn't even think about that, but you're absolutely right. I would say probably at least half of the gun cabinets I've seen have some kind of fireworks in them. And it's like you said, usually, I got that 25 years ago and I just never shot them off, but I didn't know where to keep them. It was safe. And, so that's a very common thing. But let's summarize this. Number one, if something looks dangerous and you don't know, don't go. Just get away. Call somebody that does. And it may be the police or, local bomb squad or whatever. But, again, if you call, you may have to explain where it came from, but you're not going to be in any trouble. But transporting it or, trying to deal with it yourself, you could get hurt. You could hurt a lot of other people, and you may face some serious criminal charges. Because, like you said, whether it's guns or explosives, those are the kind of things that most cops, whether you're talking the local town marshal all the way up to the federal government, they don't just look the other way about that kind of stuff. So go through the proper channels. Make sure you know what you're doing. Resist the temptation to hang on to something, because it literally may be worth tens of thousands of dollars if you could get rid of it, but you can't. Merely being in possession of it is a felony. And in this day and age, if you take it to the range, even if you take it to Grandpa's farm, there's nobody around, that sound carries. And so you rip off a couple of magazines from the Thompson or whatever. There's a good chance somebody's going to say, well, that sounds like a machine gun, and they might call the police. And then you got some serious splaining to do. So resist the temptation. And, something we haven't talked about yet, Roy, we've talked about on other podcast episodes, is if you have things like that, deal with them now so your friends and family don't have to. We've talked about the importance of planning out what happens with your gun collection. If you've got things that are going to scare people or are legitimately dangerous, you need to be thinking of a exit plan for those, because I would feel terrible if I had something like that, knowing that, if God forbid I get, wiped out in a traffic accident, then my wife, my kids, my friends might have to deal with that and run through all these decisions and problems that we've just talked about.
Yes, 100%. And because all those Grandpa's M2 carbines, it's been in his closet for 75 years, so deal with it now. I would like to add one more thing, too, which is something that's come up. People think if you throw a box of ammo in a bucket of water, that makes it not work anymore, that makes it inert. Or you can spray it with WD-40 or something like that. Well, we've done tests. Charlie Petty, one of our writers years ago, I had him specifically do a series of tests where he left different kinds of loaded ammunition in water, in buckets, for varying time periods, up to 6 months. And a lot of it still fired just fine. Yeah. I mean, some of it was, messed up a little bit. He also had he put some ammunition in a ammo belt, just a looped ammo belt. And every time he would walk up the stairs, he would throw it up to the top of the stairs, right? And then whenever he walked downstairs, he would throw it down to the bottom of the stairs. And he apparently did that for weeks, just beating this up like a son of a gun. Well, it all fired just fine.
Yep.
So that goes back to what you say. Don't think that I'll dump this box of 22s in water and let it set for a couple of days and then throw it away.
Yeah.
No, it's probably still going to work.
It doesn't work. Well, I think we've raised some good ideas here, and I'm thinking of anything I might have in my gun locker, like say firework wise. And one other thing we didn't talk about, and I don't have an answer for this. I'd be interested to hear what you think. Is there's certain things like bump stocks, like long barreled pistols. Depending on which day we're talking and which political party is making noise and what the current state of court decisions are, it's legal, illegal, legal, illegal. Is this legal? Well, it depends on what time of day it is. I don't really have a good answer. I've been through the. I don't have any bump stocks. I think they're legal now at this moment, but check local listings. I've been through the whole pistol situation. It's do as your conscience directs you, but realize, again, I keep harping on this of if it's illegal, these are the kind of things that law enforcement doesn't overlook. So,
Well, I know people say, well, that's not right.
Yeah.
I should be allowed to have this. It's like, okay, you probably should be allowed, but you can't.
You can't.
Right? and remember, Dr. Google is your friend. And so I've been on the .gov websites, the BATF and stuff, and you read things and you read exactly all of the law that applies to what you have. And when you're done reading it, you still have absolutely no idea if what you have is legal, right?
Yeah.
So if you Google it, you're going to find people on forums and stuff like that, and people who've spent their lives, trying to learn these kind of things. And if you read a lot of them, you'll finally balance and maybe get a general consensus where you have an idea that, okay, maybe this is legal or maybe this isn't legal. But I found if you call the BATF, because I've done it, call them 5 times and you will get 5 different answers. So you have to err on the side of be cautious, because it's only your freedom that we're talking about here.
Yeah.
And on the pistol thing, if you have a pistol that left the factory with a 16-inch barrel on it, for instance, like a revolver, or Heritage makes some of those, that's perfectly fine. You can buy one of their shoulder stocks and install it, and you're perfectly legal. If it's less than that, you can't put a stock on it.
Right.
Okay, period. And it's like now I think braces are legal too.
Right.
I think.
Today. Yeah.
Yeah, today. What time is it? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
In the next 5 minutes, braces are legal. So, but I don't know why people have this propensity. It's that collision between, that's not fair, we should be allowed, and, but it's a federal felony, I could go to jail. And so I don't understand why they straddle that fence. It's like, to me, it's very clear. I am not going to take that chance. I don't care how cool this is or how fair I think it is or anything. These are the guys. Remember, the government not to get off topic, but the government is the only agency that I know who are allowed to come and kill you if you don't obey the rules.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so don't take any chances. And so that's Grandpa's M2 carbine, the hand grenades from World War II that you think are really cool that you're going to take to the desert and throw, you know. And what if you have illegal ammunition? In some places like California, you can't have tracers, and so any of that kind of stuff. Just don't be silly. So that's
exactly.
Enough. I'm done preaching, but just.
No, it's a good point. And, it was funny when you were talking about like braces. I should have included those when I was talking about them. I was in Florida during the last go round where we couldn't decide if those were legal or not. And somebody brought it up in a gun store, and there was 5-6 guys in there, and every one of them started saying, "Yep, I'm getting ready to have a boat accident." I'm like, "What?" "Oh yeah, my guns with braces and stuff, they're going to just fall off the boat." And it was funny to see all these guys going. I'm like, "Oh, okay." And that tells me that you'll recover them if these become legal. Man, I just, again, let your conscience be your guide. But I always err on the side of they're going to figure it out because, and in our case, I think they would make an example out of people in the media. But even if you're just Joe Nobody on Joe Nobody Road, like I said, today there's, even our rural county has license plate readers. There's cameras every place that record. More and more common. I mean, think about it. Many homes in America have cameras that record video as you drive by, and how many crimes are getting solved because of it? A lot. So if you think you can slip down to the local pond, dump in that M2 and not have a problem, and again, whether it's right or not doesn't matter. It's whether you could get yourself in some serious, unpleasant hot water. So I'll stop preaching too.
I know. Think beyond the end of your nose is all we're asking you to do. It's dangerous. It's unsafe. Yep. You can get arrested for a federal felony. Don't play with fire. Don't
play with fire. And don't play with dynamite that is visibly weeping, because that stuff is called nitroglycerin. So that is crazy. So, well, Roy, thank you very much. And we'll get together again here on the Guns Magazine podcast.
Thank you, buddy. It's always fun.
Well, I had a great time talking to Roy Huntington, and I hope we've raised some good pointers, both legal and safety-wise, if you run across some things that, as I said, shouldn't be there. Well, before we go, a couple of things. First of all, if you haven't done it yet, please like and subscribe. That makes you part of the Guns Magazine family, and it supports what we're doing here. Don't forget to support our great sponsor, Riton Optics.
The 3 Tactix PRD and MPRD provide you a constant, reliable aim point that keeps you on target. Learn more at ritonoptics.com. Riton. See the difference.
Please don't forget our sister publications, American Handgunner Magazine at AmericanHandgunner.com and AmericanCop.com. Also, don't forget you can pick up a copy of Roy Huntington's new book, The Insider. Go to fmgpubs.com or that Amazon thing place and search for Roy Huntington. You can buy a copy there, but wherever you pick up a copy, it's a great book. Well, that's it for this episode of the Guns Magazine podcast. On behalf of everybody that works so hard here at Guns Magazine and FMG Publications, I'm Guns Magazine editor Brent Wheat, reminding you yet again, now get out there and get shooting.